We've got our best bets for UFC 318 from the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. Dustin the Diamond Poirier, Max Holloway, again, fight for the baddest mother effer championship again in New Orleans. So we've got our 5 best bets for this card. Last week we had a positive week with the best bets over with that UFC Nashville card. Thought about doing one of these for the PFL. All the odds aren't there yet for that card. I'll decide whether or not tomorrow to make a PFL best bets video or not. However, though, on the channel, again, we've got our full card predictions for UFC 318. Those are going to be linked in the description down below. And also our full card predictions for PFL Africa, Johnny Eblin, Costello Venstines in the main event over there from Cape Town, South Africa. Okay, so we got our 5 best bets. This is more than just money lines. We actually only have one straight up money line in this video. We've got over-unders, win by specific finish. So let's see it right here. Our first best bet of the card will be Bruno Fetta to win by TKO/KO, not specifically just TKO like I have on the screen. I firmly believe that Bruno Fetta is going to walk right through Jackson McVy. Okay? The one scary part, I guess, is Bruno Fetta by submission. I think he's going to walk right through McVy, though, and pretty quickly. Just because I do think the easiest pathway to victory for Fetta is going to be through the striking game. I'm not telling you that Jackson the Moose McVy has got some prominent ground game that would really alter the trajectory and course of this fight. However, the easiest pathway to victory for Bruno Fetta is on the feet, undoubtedly for me in this fight. We went over this fight, obviously, earlier in the week. Jackson McVy was originally scheduled to take on Strategas Dumas a couple weeks ago on last pay-per-view in Vegas. Then he was supposed to take on Christopher Hewitt. That fight got canceled as well. Now here he is against Fetta. It's just, okay, McVy has been preparing for a fight for a while now. He's had to cut already to make 185 pounds just 3 weeks ago, and now he's cutting yet again to get down to 185. I mean, again, different circumstance, but at the same time, we can kind of apply this here. Remember when Tony Ferguson cut weight twice in the span of 3 weeks? UFC 249 against Justin Gaethje, it did not go well for him, and I just saw Tony Ferguson's fighting some, like, YouTuber or something. Now he's boxing. Oh, man. Now I wanted to see the Dylan Dennis fight. Anyways, I don't think this is going to bode too well for McVy, especially against a guy in Bruno Fetta who swings to try to knock your head off. Now, his last victory is by submission over Armand Petrosyan back at UFC 313. But other than that, in the UFC, his other 3 wins are all by knockout. The big Gregory Rodriguez knockout win back in Brazil at UFC 283. The knockout victory over Phil Hawes in early 2024. And then his victory over Dustin Stoltzfus via the spinning elbow. He's got power, and he's willing to go to it, obviously, and that's essentially how Bruno Fetta goes out there and wins fights. His 2 losses, Nurulstin Ruzbayev and Abus Magomedov. Those fights don't mean anything to me because Nurulstin Ruzbayev and Abus Magomedov are both on different levels than Jackson McVy. I'd make the case McVy is probably the worst fighter Fetta has fought so far in the promotion. I get it, he fought Stoltzfus and he fought Phil No Chin Hawes. But I think Fetta should easily run right through this fight. Again, this is a guy who's had 6 fights in the UFC. Originally was supposed to fight Ikram Aliskerov on this card. Aliskerov, I think, has been rebooked. No, he hasn't. But yeah, originally supposed to take on Ikram Aliskerov, a guy who has beat Andrea Muniz, fought Robert Whittaker. Bruno Fetta now gets pivoted to Jackson McVy, a guy who on the regional scenes won back-to-back fights in LFA. I'm going to give him credit. Jackson McVy has never seen the second round. He's never seen a fight go more than 3.5 minutes, which is just insane. And I don't really know how that ends up in this fight if we see Fetta and McVy go deeper in the fight, just because Fejeda's a guy who usually doesn't go all that deep into fights either, and we kind of saw him sell the bag in the Abus Magomedov fight late at UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. But if anything, I do think it kind of helps Fajeda, or it does go to Fajeda's advantage, because McVy, again, doesn't go past the first round. Regardless of that, though, my official prediction for this fight that we went through earlier in the week was first round knockout for Bruno Fajeda, and that doesn't change. However, this bet, we don't need Fajeda to get it done in the first. We just need a knockout from any point in this fight, obviously. For the full 15 minutes, we just need a knockout at some point in the bout, and I believe Bruno Fajeda is going to be the one to get it done. Minus 120 for Bruno Fajeda to kick off the night, well, after the women's fight in the opener. Bruno Fajeda is going to get us on the board with a first-round knockout victory over Jackson McVy. Again, doesn't need to happen in the first, but we have to win by TKO Bruno Fajeda. Let's move on now to our second fight of the night, our second best bet of the video. We go to probably worst odds we're going to play throughout the best bet series here. As I say on the other channel, my main channel, Greedo Plays, the most I ever play for any bet is usually minus 145. If it exceeds minus 145, unless it's something I absolutely love, then I don't play it, okay? So minus 140 is getting on that boundary, but I do still think it's more than playable. We have got Islam Dulattov versus Adam Fugit, and I believe Islam Dulattov is going to win by TKO. So same type of deal as the Bruno Fetta bet, now just with Dulattov. I understand it is a little risky taking a guy in Dulattov who has never fought in the UFC before. He is coming off the Contender Series where he beat Benito Antunes, wins the fight by first round knockout, was originally booked against Adam Fugit in February of this year. Dulattov had to pull out of that fight. Fugit ended up getting rebooked against Billy Ray Goff. That fight fell through, so here is Fugit yet again. Dulattov's a guy in 12 pro fights. He's got 6 victories by TKO, 5 victories by submission, and 1 loss by decision. But this is a guy who does have a 100% finish rate so far. And I went over this earlier in the week. Like, Dulattov has fought guys with a lot of experience. Look at his record in Octagon and Sparta Fighting Championship or Championship fighting guys who are 20-12-1, 42-19, 13-7 in Brave. Again, those are guys, I mean, I'd rather take that over, you see guys in the regional scene, especially like you see in the PFL a lot with those guys coming up, where you see guys who are beating 0-1 guys and 1-1 fighters and 2-2 fighters, like right before they get a shot in a major promotion. At least Dulattov is fighting, somewhat accomplished fighters. And I look at this fight, and this does have to do with Islam Dulattov a lot because he's young, he's got good boxing. Again, this is a guy who was born in Chechnya, now trains and moved, I believe, fully to Germany. So he's got the kickboxing, he's got the grappling too. Again, we are just really hoping he can win this fight by TKO. And again, this is partially because of Dulattov, but at the same time, it's also, okay, Adam Fugit is not the best, I'm just going to be honest. Right? Fugit's 36 years of age. You're 36 now, fighting at 170 pounds. If you're not elite, that usually doesn't bode well for you, right? Fugit has not fought since June of 2024. He barely edged out a split decision victory over Josh Quinlan. This is a 2-2 fighter in the UFC. Got his shot after beating Solomon Renfro in LFA, then went on to get slaughtered against Michael Morales, beats Yukashu Kinoshita, loses to Mike Mallet, and beats Josh Quinlan. In Fugit's defense, he has not lost to a bad fighter just yet. Well, yeah, we still have some hope for Mike Malott, I believe. Yeah, we do, right? And then Michael Morales, obviously top 6-ish, top 7-ish fighter on the planet right now, at least at 170 pounds. But Fugit just got by Josh Quinlan, and it was a competitive fight, right? You got knocked out by Morales, Malott submits you, and now you're 36. Again, it's a difference. All right, he fought Michael Morales at 33, fought Mike Malott at 34. You're now 36 years of age, fighting an up-and-coming, hungry guy in Islam Dulattov, who's coming in there to knock your head off in his UFC debut, right? There's a reason when you look at just the straight-up odds for this fight, Dulattov is a minus 625 favorite. And Fugit's coming back at plus 430. The only reason we're getting minus 140 for this fight, I firmly believe, is because of the threat of the submission from Dulattov, right? We look at the Adam Fugit-Mike Malott fight back in Canada at UFC 289. Malott goes in there and gets a guillotine choke finish over Fugit. So I do think there is a potential for, okay, Dulattov's dominating and then he sinks in an arm triangle choke after a knockdown, or he gets a knockdown, ground and pound, and then a submission opens up for him. I'm hoping that is not the case. Now, if we went Dulattov by finish, it's like minus 200. So I'm willing to take my chances with a finish here, at least by TKO/KO. Very minor thing, but I mentioned this earlier in the week. Again, go check out that video, link in the description down below. It's the BMF card. Dana has been hyping this card up. Again, these are the baddest dudes on the planet. This is the BMF card. We're going to see non-stop action the entire night. I don't know how much that means, but I do believe there's going to be an emphasis, and at least the UFC is hoping that there are a bunch of knockouts up and down the card. And I'm going to get into that in a few moments here with 2 fights or 3 fights that I believe are all going to end in finish. But you look at just the names in the card, even fights that I'm not going to talk about right now. Ryan Spann versus Lucas Brzeski. Well, if Ryan Spann still has a somewhat competent bone in his body still, he should go in there and get a quick finish, right? There are a bunch of guys who are supposed to go in here and just get finishes to make the card look really good. There's 14 fights. They stacked a bunch of fighters in the card, but not a lot of big names for a reason, because they want a bunch of finishes. I believe this fight's the same exact thing. Dulattov making his UFC debut against a guy who's 36. I believe Dulatov's going to get it done. He's going to knock out Adam Fugit. I personally have Dulattov winning in the first round, but again, at any point in the fight, a TKO/KO victory for Dulattov does it for us. Give me Islam Dulattov to win by TKO, minus 140. Our third best bet of the video is a over-under bet. We are going the under in Michael the Menace Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber. There are multiple ways this can go. Right? Last week we hit on our under pretty early. Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Walter Walker. Now, I didn't expect Walter Walker to win that fight, but hell, it worked for me. I had the under in that fight. It was that being under 2.5 was absolutely ridiculous, by the way. I mean, I didn't think that fight was making it out of the first round, let alone the second. Anyways, we're going under 2.5 for Daniel Zellhuber and Michael the Menace Johnson. Full transparency, I'm not as confident with this pick than I was with Nzechukwu and Walter Walker last week. I still feel very highly about this one because, okay, here's the thing. We need a finish. We just can't let this fight go to the distance. And sure, there are 2.5 minutes after the over-under would cash, or after the over would cash, that could prevent, that could still be a late third-round finish. I'm not expecting a late third-round finish, okay? There are two ways this can go. Daniel Zellhuber absolutely dominates the fight, and that's kind of what I am expecting. Or Michael the Menace Johnson goes in there and, pulls off one of the crazier upsets we're going to see, 39 years of age, and he goes out there and knocks out Daniel Zellhuber. Because ultimately, that's the Menace's only chance in this fight, is if Michael Johnson lands a big right, okay? Or honestly, just lands a big shot, too. His left's not bad either. I believe he knocked out Alan Patrick with the left, and his last fight was a right hook against Otman Azaitar, if I remember correctly. But we just need, again, either one of those things to happen. And I know Daniel Zellhuber hasn't gotten the most finishes yet in the UFC. Well, okay, pal. You're taking on a 39-year-old Michael Johnson, a guy who has beat Dustin Poirier before, he's beat Tony Ferguson before, he's beat Edson Barboza before, if I'm not mistaken, right? Beating really good fighters, okay? You are getting an opportunity to take on a guy who's been in the UFC for years. This will be walk number, I think, 31 for Michael Johnson into the octagon. You are being afforded another main card opportunity on a UFC pay-per-view after your last fight was fight of the year potential at the Sphere against Esteban Ribovic. Go out here and take advantage and capitalize on the opportunity. That's all this is. Is all this is for Daniel Zellhuber, who was supposed to be fighting in Mexico earlier this year on the Moreno Erceg card. He had Alves Brenner, he had Austin Hubbard in a layup fight against Austin Hubbard, but that fight didn't happen because Zellhuber had to withdraw from it. Now you get him and Michael Johnson, okay, take advantage of it, I expect Zellhuber to win by first round knockout, and part of that is because I do believe in the striking game of Zellhuber. I know his power hasn't always been there. I don't think he's won by knockout yet in the UFC. He is not. His only finish is against Christos Giagos back in September of 2023. I look at that Ribovic fight and say, okay, Zellhuber drops Ribovic in that fight. He does damage to Ribovic in that fight. It just doesn't go his way because Ribovic is tough as hell. And that's just one of those crazy fights that is legitimately just an all-time bout. You put Daniel Zellhuber in there, and as long as he fights the same pace that he did in the Ribovic fight and fights with the same intensity as he did in the Ribovic fight, he is going to knock out Michael Johnson, and he's going to do it pretty early. If he just brings it to Johnson and fights the style of fight that I expect him to, this one's not getting out the first round. And even if Zellhuber, is chasing the knockout, or he is being, persistent in the fact that he's going to go out there and he's going to try to put away Michael Johnson quick, okay, there is also a possibility Michael Johnson does counter him. Because ultimately, if I'm Michael Johnson here, I'm hoping I can get Daniel Zellhuber, again, overextending for the knockout, throwing a straight, and leaving himself wide open. Michael Johnson can sit back, counter, throw the right hook, right? That's what I'm hoping if I'm the Michael Johnson camp. So both of these guys' pathway to victories should come via the knockout. And 2.5 rounds, again, we are afforded 12.5 minutes to work with here. So essentially, right, again, it could happen, a finish late in the third round that doesn't cash for us, but essentially, we just need a finish in this fight. And I look at Daniel Zellhuber, who I understand can win by decision, but if Daniel Zellhuber is fighting the fight that I think he's going to fight, and if he fights the fight like he did against Esteban Ribovic was great on that Sphere night at Noche. But if Zellhuber fights like that and fights at that pace against Michael Johnson's not going to be able to keep up. Simply put, he's not going to be able to keep up with that pace. I think we're fine here. And if Michael Johnson's going to have any chance to win this bout, it's going to have to be via the knockout, finding a huge shot, and putting down Zellhuber at the same time. So either way, I feel really good here about the under 2.5 rounds in the Michael Johnson-Daniel Zellhuber fight to kick off the main card here at UFC 318. Now we go to kind of a long play here, but hear me out. It is a 3-leg parlay. We've got Atiba Gutierrez, Vinicius Oliveira, and Kevin Holland. It's at plus 130. By far the toughest part of this, I will say it right now, the toughest part of this play is undoubtedly Vinicius Oliveira. And I don't even think that's close, right? I will go over Holland and Gutierrez real quick, and I'll spend most of the time talking about Vinicius Oliveira. Atiba Gutierrez should not have a problem against Robert Valentin. I've been speaking very highly about Gutierrez since his Contender Series victory. I think he's really, or since he was just booked on the Contender Series. I've picked him obviously in back-to-back fights already under the Zuffa banner. This is a guy who hits really hard. Jose Medina is not the most skillful UFC fighter. However, that guy has a chin on him. Atiba Gutierrez knocks that guy out in the first round. Again, Atiba Gutierrez is a 6'4" middleweight. He's 23 years of age. He will end his career undoubtedly at light heavyweight, but this is a guy training out of Cameroon from Cameroon, who's an absolute specimen. He's taking on Robert Valentin, who I watched get, kind of just dominated by Ryan Loder. Different stylistic fight, don't get me wrong. But we just need Gutierrez to win. Valentin will get to kind of fight the fight he wants to fight. Loder and Finney both got to wrestle him. Atiba Gutierrez, I don't expect to do that, but I just expect Atiba Gutierrez to be much better on the feet again. There's a reason they put Gutierrez on this card, BMF card. They want a finish out of their young Cameroonian prospect. So that's the first leg of the parlay. I'll go over the second leg in a second. We just got to talk about Kevin Holland, Daniel Rodriguez real quick. This is one of the biggest locks in the card. Kevin Holland is going to dominate Daniel Rodriguez, a fight that was supposed to happen back in 2022 at UFC 279. Holland, of course, rebooked against Khamzat Chimaev. D-Rod rebooked against Li Jingliang. Kevin Holland would have beaten Daniel Rodriguez back then. He's going to beat him now. I think Kevin Holland wins on the feet, and I think ultimately he's actually going to win this fight by submission because I think the submission is way more there for Holland than the knockout is. Holland's put together back-to-back victories after losing to Roman Dolidze and Rainer de Ritter, beats Gunnar Nelson, beats Vicente Luque. Holland is looking really good right now. He's 32 years of age. I still am a big believer in the fact that I believe Kevin Holland is going to break the all-time wins record someday just because of his activity. And if he fights until he's like 40, which, again, that's 8 more years. We know, again, Holland's not there to fight for a belt. I think he will probably break Jim Miller's record eventually. We'll see. Again, I don't know how long Miller's going to keep fighting. And there is a guy named Josh Van who I know he's only got 8 wins in the UFC, but he's got 8 wins at 23. And I don't know how long he's going to fight, but he's, half the way there to Holland right now, and he's 9 years younger than Kevin Holland. That's besides the point. I think Holland dominates the fight with Daniel Rodriguez. It's just a levels fight. It doesn't make sense to me. Holland should be fighting guys at the top of the weight class at 170 because, again, Kevin Holland at 170 pounds is more than serious. He's a way better fighter at 70 than he is at 85 just because, again, he's not overwhelmed by the strength and just the overall weight of his opponents at 170. He will see no problem dealing with D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. I'm taking Kevin Holland, obviously, there. And the second leg of the parlay is Vinicius Oliveira against Kyler Phillips. I said this earlier in the week. I've never really been that impressed with Kyler Phillips. He just lost to Rob Font. Vinicius Oliveira is probably a better version of Rob Font at this point in time. Rob Font's about to fight Raul Rosas. I'll get to that fight when we get there. I believe that's at Noche in San Antonio. I think Rosas probably wins, but I don't know. Just the New England cartel has gone shroop in the last year. Vinicius Oliveira is really good. 3 fights in the UFC, 3 wins. Bernardo Sopaj in the Apex, Ricky Simone, Said Nurmagomedov. This guy's good. He's got good defensive wrestling. He's got good all-around grappling, and he's going to box your head off. Now, he did lose to Ali Taleb back in July of 2022. Taleb's now coming off a loss to Taylor Lapidus over in PFL Europe just a couple weeks ago. It is what it is. Vinicius Oliveira has been really good in the UFC. And he is a long, lanky type of guy who's just tough to deal with at 135 pounds. I look at Kyler Phillips, just lost to Rob Font. Rob Font outboxed Kyler Phillips. Vinicius Oliveira probably outboxes Kyler Phillips as well. And on the ground, too, I think there's a pathway for Oliveira as well. Phillips just has never risen to the occasion, in my opinion, other than the Song Yadong victory, where it was it was a close fight. Whenever he's afforded a bit or given a big opportunity, whenever he's in the rankings trying to build his way up. This guy lost to Halian Paiva after beating Song Yadong. This guy lost to Rob Font at 30-something years of age. And sure, he beat an old Houndy Barcelos, which is, in all fairness, aging kind of well because Barcelos is putting together a win streak and just beat Cody Garbrandt. and also Kyler Phillips beating old Pedro Munoz. That doesn't do much for me, all of those fights. I believe Vinicius Oliveira is going to win. I firmly believe this is a top 10-ish bantamweight on the planet. Will he get beat by the top guys of the weight class? Oh, yeah. But if you book him and Chito Vera next, I think Oliveira wins that fight, and that's probably the fight I want to actually see next. Or Song Yadong. I wouldn't mind that either. Anyways, that's the 3-leg parlay. Again, we take Vinicius Oliveira, Kevin Holland, and we also take Atiba Gutierrez to get to about plus 130 on the odds again for this 3-leg. Let's move on to our final best bet of the video. I went back and forth on this one all week, not on the pick. I've always thought I was going to take Dustin Poirier, and I have. My only thing was, do I actually put it in the best bets video or not? My answer is yes. Okay, guys, there are very rare times in mixed martial arts where fighters are afforded good and happy endings. Off the top of my head, the only one I can think of at a high level is Khabib Nurmagomedov. George St. Pierre, I guess. Yeah, GSP. And again, there are more. I'm just not thinking them right now. John Jones, I guess. But usually, mixed martial arts fighters end their careers with losing, right? It's just usually how it works. And sure, there are the exceptions, right? There are the John Jones. There are the Khabibs. There are the GSPs, right? Dustin Poirier tonight gets an opportunity to end his career with a victory and winning a BMF championship. Sure, it is not the undisputed world championship that has eluded him for the entirety of his career, but Poirier will get an opportunity to walk away with something, and a belt that he has lost before, or given an opportunity to fight for before, and lost, obviously, to Justin Gaethje, the champion in which Max Holloway beat for the current BMF belt. Now, don't get me wrong, is the BMF belt stupid? Oh, it is. But it is what it is, right? I think that Diamond beats Max Holloway. You can take away all this BMF nonsense, okay? I've seen this fight before. And I understand the first fight was in 2019. So the second fight was in 2019. The first fight, I think, was 2012. I get that. It's been 6 years since their second matchup in Atlanta, Georgia. I still think Dustin is going to beat Max Holloway, okay? I just look at Max's run. And I've been the first to say I'm not the most impressed. Okay, I'm not going to say not impressed. I think the Gaethje fight, again, incredible performance from Max Holloway. That's a fight that gets changed at the end of the first round, though. Sure, Max wins the first round, right? But I've always been under the belief that Gaethje was getting better as the fight went on, and I thought he did in the 4th and 5th rounds. And if he didn't break his nose in the first, I don't know what happens in that fight. Regardless, though, masterful performance out of Blessed Holloway, okay? Look at the Ilya fight. How does a fighter respond to getting knocked out for the first time? And not only is Max's whole thing, he doesn't get knocked out, he rarely gets dropped. No one drops Max Holloway. Ilya didn't just do that, he put him out. And again, that just goes to show, again, the greatness of the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world in Ilya Topuria. He called his shot. He told Max that's what he was going to do to him, and he did. How does a fighter respond? How does Max Holloway respond? Who, sure, is younger than Dustin Poirier by 3 years. Max is 33, Dustin's 36. Who's got more mileage, though? They both have the same amount of fights in the UFC. They're both 22-8. However, I'm going to say, I think, as a whole accumulation of damage, yeah, Max Holloway's taken so much more damage than Dustin Poirier has. Just because Dustin's fights will end in finishes. And sure, Dustin's been in his fair share of wars. Michael Chandler. Justin Gaethje, twice. Right? Hell, Dan Hooker was a tremendous one. Max Holloway as well. Eddie Alvarez. Sure, Poirier's been in his wars. I don't know, man. Max has been in so many barn burners as well, though. He just got knocked out. By the way, again, that's the main factor. He's coming off a knockout loss. The damage he took in the Volk fights, the Dustin fight. I don't want to bring it up, but I mean, remember when Max Holloway got the fight canceled against Brian Ortega the first time around, right? There was supposed to be the co-main for DC and Stipe. You know, people were hinting at, oh, that's brain damage. Again, it was probably just the weight cut, but still, you just don't know what Max is going to be after a knockout. And that's why I'm going with Dustin. On top of that as well, Poirier, I mean, if you've seen the latest stuff out of Dustin Poirier, he looks like he's in the best shape of his career. He does, right? And say what you want, but I do believe we're going to see a really good version of Dustin Poirier here. And also, you know how hard it is to win the third fight after you've lost the first two? Hell, ask Max Holloway how that's gone for him. He's lost the first two fights against Dustin Poirier. He lost the first two fights against Alexander Volkanovski. And in that third fight, he got dominated by Alexander Volkanovski. I believe that Diamond's going to win. I think he's going to get that storybook ending. He's at home. He's walking out with Lil Wayne. He's in New Orleans. Dustin Poirier is not winning this fight. And if he doesn't, oh man. Dustin Poirier, oh man, if Poirier loses, I mean, how many big fights is this guy gonna lose? You know? I'm not calling him a choke artist. He's not. He's beat Max before. He's beat Conor before, right? I'm just saying whenever there's some sort of belt on the line, Dustin always doesn't always get his way. He's 0-3 in title fights, technically 0-4 if you count the BMF belt, and 1-4 if you count the interim championship fight against Max. I believe Dustin gets it done. I saw him push Max Holloway to his limit in the second fight. I saw him walk forward against Max Holloway. I think he's going to be able to counter the boxing. Again, Max is a great boxer, sure. He's coming off a knockout, and I've already seen Dustin outbox him before. And there's also the threat of the grappling too with Poirier as well. I'm going with the diamond to beat Max plus Holloway. I have by decision, but our best bet again is just Dustin to win. Give me the diamond money line plus 105 at home from Louisiana. So folks, thank y'all for watching our 5 best bets here for UFC 318. If you haven't yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.